Thanks again for joining us here on our Better Together series here, where we're talking about our integrations with our current strategic partners. Today, I'm very excited to talk to TimeZest and what we've done here in the Pia ecosystem. So I'll do a quick bit of housekeeping here. Today's session is going to go for around 45 minutes. It will be recorded at the end of this session, and you will get an email following up this in the next 48 hours with the recording. So we don't need to worry about taking too many notes. Um, if you're already in and you haven't filled out the poll, we've got a poll up there. Please give us your results. We'd love to see who we're talking to here. And then the topic of today is all around scheduling and how can we make this more efficient, and basically how do we save time? Everyone today is all about operational efficiency, and what we want to talk about today is how can we make that powerful platform of TimeZest even more efficient by giving it the intelligence of Pia and the automation with the AI to make that a smooth transition. So I'm excited to dive into this topic today. We're also going to go through a bit of a live demonstration, so give you a bit of an insight around what TimeZest is and what it looks like, and the application within the Pia platform, and some of the use cases that you can take away from this. So I'm excited to go through that. And then lastly, we'll have a bit of Q&A. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, down in the bottom lower bar there, you'll see a few icons. Feel free to drop any questions in that Q&A, and we'll be answering those either in the chat or saving them up to the end of the session. Okay, well, thanks for that poll, guys. I'm going to cancel that now. We'll see the results. So, a good amount of TimeZest partners here today, and a good amount, the majority actually, is both Pia and TimeZest. So, fantastic uh, application of your time today. So, we're going to learn about how we can maximize, if you haven't already integrated the tools together, what you're going to walk away with some really good use cases and ideas to get started. Well, on that note, let's kick into some introductions. So, as I've got the mic, I'll continue. My name, for those of you who aren't familiar with me, is James Allen. I'm our Chief Community Officer here at Pia. And what I do is I help our partners stop feeling like they're alone out there on islands, bringing you in together to share use cases, help with adoption, and create evangelists so we can go from being out there on your own to coming in together with a community, sharing those ideas, and taking things to a whole other level. I'll pass it over to a man I like to call Mr. MSP.
Hmm.
You've probably seen him either in the front of house or the back of house or events. Mr. Joe Spiller. Give the guys a bit of background.
Hey, nice to be here. Yeah, I come from a big MSP background before coming to PIA. One of the really neat things is I was like, at the launch, like when we launched globally, like 3.5 years ago. It was a whirlwind. I've seen the growth ever since then. And just being from that MSP background, just some of the things that we can do now is just incredible. And just glad to be here.
Thanks, Joe. I'll pass it over to the TimeZest team.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll start it off then here, James. Appreciate it. I'm Jerway Todd. I'm one of the founders of TimeZest, and also I operate as a CEO. We've been, at this journey for a while now. But one of the unique things that I have an interesting purview into is that for all of 2025, no, four. I was also part of running Pia, so I have just a really interesting vantage point, I think, on how combining these applications together can be a really, really powerful opportunity for people. So it's great to see that we've got mutual customers here, and we're going to give you some real direct tips on how to make sure that the integration between our two applications are working well for you, and we'll show you those use cases. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And my name is Don Quarles. I'm a customer success engineer with TimeZest. If you can't tell, I'm a little under the weather, so I'll push my way through the webinar here. But I also come from an MSP background, which is pretty awesome to be here on the webinar today because I had the privilege of using both Pia and TimeZest at the MSP I came from. So I've got some pretty good insight in the industry on how both tools work and work well. And I'm happy to show how both tools can work well together.
Fantastic, Don. We're looking forward to your insights there. Well, let's get into it, team. So, look, judging from that poll, there was definitely a good cohort of partners of both Pia and TimeZest, but there was also some partners of just Pia and TimeZest. So I think it makes sense to give those who aren't familiar with each other's platforms a little bit of background. So I'll go through a bit of a 101 around what is Pia and I guess why we do what we do. So for those of you who aren't aware, we were actually born out of quite a large MSP based in Australia, Virtual IT Group. And we were thought out from the leadership team around how do we solve specific business problems within our MSP. We were growing very fast and we were sick of putting more bodies, throwing more bodies at the problem. And not only is there a challenge when we're growing and scaling and hiring, it's also maintaining that consistency of service delivery. Because anyone that's been in an MSP, one of the main reasons why we lose clients is because we're not meeting expectations. And those expectations can be, as simple as we forgot to take off a license when we terminated a user. So out of those problems and use cases, we built the application, which is now known as Pia. And effectively, it combines artificial intelligence, which learns and understands what's happening within the MSP ticket, and it interacts seamlessly with the automations that we've built to go out and then resolve those tickets on the help desk. So creating huge operational efficiencies and consistencies. On top of that, we also have a full development orchestration platform, which is why I'm excited to talk about today. The integration piece around TimeZest is things that we can build in on the platform to go and extend further outside of what we've built out of the box. So that said, that's a little bit of background around Pia. Joe, why don't you give us a bit of background around why you created what you've created over there at TimeZest and what are the problems that it's solving for your partners?
Yeah, I appreciate it, James. Well, we started with the scheduling use case, and it was a pretty obvious one when we thought about, the world had kind of adopted tools like Bookings and Calendly, and before you know it, you're looking at, well, we're sharing these links in email and text messages, and it is the modern way to book a meeting. Like we do our doctor's appointments this way, we schedule a lot of things this way. But what was never enabled is taking that technology and applying it to the MSP use case. And so what we discovered is there's a tremendous opportunity to integrate scheduling in an automated modern way into the ticket lifecycle. And so we integrate directly into the ticket, whether it's a PSA, Halo PSA, ConnectWise, or Autotask. And in doing so, we allow a user, whether it be a dispatcher or a tech, to just be a few clicks away from requesting time with a client to meet with them to resolve their issue.
Fantastic. And that's a real good hop off point for our conversation here today. All around, that slowing down of tickets, tickets typically don't blow out in terms of their time entries. It comes down to a lot of that bottlenecking between can I get a technician to work on this task? Who's available? That ping pong that I've heard you call it before, that back and forth. So tell us like what you're seeing in the market. Like what are some of these frustrations coming about at the help desk level, at the operations level, and what's some of the impacts that you're seeing by you guys solving those problems?
Yeah, I think the opportunity there is obviously much like what Pia does, right? It resolves the time and capacity challenge we have with our technology teams, and we all know how backed up they are. There's just a constant workload on imagine just a reactive help desk support use case, just a massive workload of things being plowed their way, and so there's that one opportunity, but the real opportunity from a engagement perspective with an end customer is that customer experience. And I find, when we get through the process of working with people to discover what's possible, I think it happens with your technology too, that, our first approach is what are we doing to save the tech team time? And we quickly get to an answer there pretty quick of we're going to save you exponential time in what it used to take, the ping pong in your case, taking a new user setup from what used to be an hour to an hour and a half down to 15 minutes max, through automation and some input from a tech. Those things are phenomenal advantages. But the customer experience is even more important. And I consider that kind of the priceless category, right? Like was it MasterCard, I believe, that had the priceless campaign? There are things that we
Mm.
know we can quantify, and then there are things that we know we are really hard to quantify, but we sure know that keeping a VIP customer happy is priceless. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's really one of the core tenets that Pia was born out of, especially coming out of that MSP. That end customer experience has always been at the forefront of our thinking. And I love that our two organizations have got that as part of the passion project within our business. And solving for that challenge around how do we make the MSP both more efficient and not losing that customer experience can be a pretty interesting tightrope to walk, because typically when we have things faster, the quality drops. Or you can have, one out of the two out of the three, speed, quality, or cost. So I feel like what we're doing here is we're capturing all three and giving a great experience and also doing it really seamlessly and efficiently.
yeah, absolutely. Hey James, I got to ask you a favor though.
Yeah,
This
sure.
webinar is too boring.
Too boring.
We're
How are
gonna
we
have to
going to
mix it
spice
up,
it up a
man.
little?
We're gonna have to just stir the pot a little. We're gonna have to like throw some things out there, like how much of a rock star Joe and Don are. And let me start with this. I'll throw something out there to make it
I
easy.
like I like a spicy
All right.
punch.
So you're an Aussie from down under. We love to learn stories from you. I hope you and Katie are just super happy with my recommendation to move to Salt Lake City. Okay. And you've been like traversing the US. I'm sad that you left Tampa. You were a neighbor of mine effectively for a while here. That's where we all met, just so everyone knows. So tell me, James, like, what's the experience been as an Australian coming to America?
I feel like this is a loaded question, Mr.
Give us something.
Todd.
Give us something as
And I'm
Americans to
pretty
be
sure
happy
all of
about.
the
Like,
all the
It,
participants here are
and it
American.
has
So
to
I gotta
have
be
something to do
careful.
with the quesadilla. Like,
Yeah,
he was big on the quesadilla. So
the queso for sure. And I'm pretty sure all the Americans here are armed, so I've got to be careful what I say. Um, no, look,
yes, we know that. That's a fact we've already got all figured out.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, look, phenomenal. Really, it has been phenomenal. Both the culture and the people here are great. So, look, very much appreciative of the time that we're spending and getting to spend over here in the States. Obviously, sad not being close to family and relatives, but no, it's fantastic. We love it.
What a cultural experience your kids have gotten, right? Like, just phenomenal, huh?
Absolutely. And yes, Dennis, I did exchange Crocodile Dundee for the Gators down in Florida. I appreciate the shout outs. Very good.
Awesome.
Very
All
funny.
right, good stuff. Good stuff. We got to keep that going throughout. We'll sprinkle this stuff in. All
All
right,
right.
James?
All right. I appreciate
All right,
that.
bud.
All right. So on that note, let's bring the other guys in. Let's stop our gas bagging. I want to see from Don, what have you got for us around TimeZest? So for those of you who aren't familiar with the TimeZest platform, it seems like a good part of the people are, but for those of you who aren't, Don's going to show us it in action, so you get a bit of a feel for what we're actually talking about here today. And then Joe is going to talk about that application, how we can make it intelligent, automate it, and bring it seamless into that experience. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, for sure, James. And, we felt it was definitely beneficial to show the Times S side so that way as the P automation's calling out Times S, right? Yeah, everyone understands what's actually happening in the background. So let me go ahead and share my screen here and we'll take everybody through a live demo. Fingers crossed, everything goes well, right? Being live, no, we should be good. But yeah, we'll take everyone through a live demo here inside of ConnectWise and show everyone what Times S can do. So let me paint a picture here. You'll see that we have this ticket in ConnectWise with Anna Murray at PopZig Consulting. She's unable to print, and we need to schedule some time with her. Built inside of the ticket, as with Pia, we have our own scheduling pod for TimeZest, and this is where the team can create and send off the requests. First, you would do a drop down here on the resources section. You're going to select
Don,
who.
are you sharing your screen?
Yeah, I thought I was. Am I not?
I
I
can.
don't see it, Dawn. So once
Okay.
you fire it off again, try it one time.
Um,
There we
how's
go.
how's
It
that?
looks like it's
Okay,
toggling.
that was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
no,
So maybe start from the top if you
yeah,
could.
yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
All good.
Um, but yeah, no. anyways, circle back to where we were. We have this ticket in ConnectWise with Anna Murray at PopZig Consulting. She is unable to print, and we need to schedule some time with her. So built inside of the ticket here, you'll find we have our TimeZest scheduling pod, and this is where the team can create and send off the request. First, you would do a drop down here in the resources section. You're going to select who needs to be scheduled with that end user. For this example, let's go ahead and use Dave. And then you'll do a drop down for this appointment type and select the one that best fits the need. For this example, let's go ahead and just say a 30-minute phone call. Once these two fields are populated, you'll see we have this button up here for send scheduling request. You would just simply click that button, and that is it. The request has been sent off, like Jerway mentioned earlier, three clicks by the service, coordinator, dispatcher, the team, and the request is sent off automatically. With our API hook inside of the PSA, we're going to come in here and update the status automatically. So this can help with any SLA timers you have set in the system. And then we do add notes along every step of the way, just so that way the team can track what we're doing on the ticket itself. And then from here, if we jump inside of Anna's mailbox, this is that email she's received from us. Now, this email is fully customizable. You could have your logo here at the top, edit the wording as you see fit. The end user would just simply hit choose a time. Once they do that, we take them to our scheduling page, and on this page, we show them availability based off of the appointment type as well as the availability of your resource. And then from here, the end user would just simply pick a day and time that works for them. So for this example, let's go ahead and say tomorrow at 3 p.m. works best. And then we have this option here to ask for a good contact number. This way the team knows what number to give the end user a call on. And then from there, they can just simply hit confirm. After they hit confirm, a couple moments will pass, and then we get the confirmation page on the screen. And that's all she wrote. This request has been scheduled. We do offer these options to reschedule and cancel if you want. If not, you don't have to show those options. But then in the confirmation email the end user receives, we can include that button there at the bottom for them to go back and reschedule or cancel as needed. And the most important piece of this all from the end user's perspective, we get this Outlook invite automatically attached on the email. That way it's in their calendar, they know about the appointment, and they should show up to the appointment with the team. And then if we jump back inside of the service ticket and refresh, you'll see we come in here and update the status again to a scheduled state. We'll add another note. This one can include that phone number that the end user put in. And then lastly, from the tech side, the most important piece, we automatically schedule them on the ticket for the day and time the customer chose.
Phenomenal,
Excellent.
Don. Man, you have mastered that, dude. Really good.
I could do it in my sleep at this
Yeah,
point.
you
I've done
definitely.
how many?
You've done hundreds of these now, haven't you?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think I'm over 350, 360, somewhere around there.
really good run through. Absolutely. So let me jump in here real quick then, Don. If you can go back up to the pod,
Yeah.
the TimeZest pod. Everything that you saw Don do from this moment of selecting a resource and appointment type, just keep that in mind as we traverse the conversation here and start to bring Pia into the discussion, because effectively what you'll see is examples of us doing that in effectively a pre-configured way. Calling it through APIs, doing it in an integrated fashion between our applications. You're going to see how that operates here in just a minute.
Perfect. No, that's excellent, Don. And for those of you on the call that aren't using Times, as you can see, it's been purpose built for MSPs, scheduling your resources. So check it out if you're not using it. And I can see why a lot of people love this. So yeah, to Joe's point, we're going to move over to Joe. So as we get into this piece now, Joe is going to take us through one of the use cases. And when we say one of the use cases, what we've built is actually the ability to enter in your TimeZest scheduling link to any Pia workflow. So for those of you who are familiar with the Pia platform, we have our out-of-box automations, but also those out-of-box automations have extension points. And those extension points is where you can actually plug in your own code that you've built or something that you pull down from the automation hub or that we've built. And that's exactly what Joe's going to take us through today. Just one out of an infinite amount of different use cases that we can get through with this TimeZest integration. So Joe, over to you.
Yeah, can everybody see my screen? I'll just start there.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
All right. So, yeah, really the smart forms feature and, integrating with TimeZest can really do a lot of things. One of the big things about smart forms is giving the client the ability to log in and do a user onboarding or termination or get a sales quote, those different things. We always say it moves them to the top of the queue every time because of the automation behind that. So I'm going to take you through a scenario where we do have that integration in place here. So the client's going to log in to the portal here and choose the onboarding. So what they'll get, and we won't bore you and fill all this in, but it has the ability to copy an existing employee, setting up that user or doing access levels. And then you got a couple different options here, but one of the big things here's the TimeZest integration. So we are going to schedule a call. I did put my name in there so you can see the email. And what's going to happen is P has already created this in the ticket. You'll see the ticket number there. And then within the ticket, we'll be able to pull up the onboarding. And that's the automation behind that. So I believe I have the zero touch automation feature turned on. So P has really started up the automation and is going to start creating this user. You're going to see checks and balances here. It went through, verified it had a unique ID, UPN, login name, licensing, so on and so forth. So as that's going, it's creating that account. It's signing the groups, licenses, mailboxes. I did speed this up a little bit. The automation in general is 6 to 8 minutes, depending on that. And there you can see basically we sent that user a scheduling link. This is what they'll see in their email, just kind of like what Don showed earlier. It's pretty much the same deal. So we're going to choose a time. It's going to pull up my calendar here and pick a time. And they could put a description. Hey, I need a laptop set up after this user is set up. So, really quick and sweet. That's really what it does. It's going to go through and with the TimeZest integration, has that full ability to not only onboard a brand new user, but get somebody scheduled to do more things after that. Now, I do want to show you something really quick here also. Within the SmartForms platform, let me move this thing over. Within the SmartForms platform, this is really where you go set up SmartForms within here. And James did mention, using extension points. With our Cloud Radio, or not Cloud Radio, I'm sorry, TimeZest integration, we had the ability to add extensions on to these certain packages. So if I come over here to my onboarding packages, kind of the one I ran for this particular company, pull that up here. So this is where I'm adding those pre-built extensions that we have for TimeZest into for this particular client. You'll see that drop-down menu. I can do it per client, so not everybody has to have the same extension points. But this is really the easy way to, where we can continually update our automations, but using the extension points gives you guys the ability to really extend out. It could be an automation, could be a TimeZest integration, so on and so forth. So it does give you that ability to do that and really, really build out and take the time on these way, way, way down.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Joe. I appreciate you showing a bit of that back
Yeah.
end magic as well. Did you want to
One
talk?
more thing I wanted to point out, James, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our knowledge portal, which I'll throw this link in the chat here. This is basically our TimeZest integration right here, and it shows you some of these scenarios. We just went through the staff onboarding, but really think outside the box with smart forms and what you can do with that integration. A sales quoting tool. You could basically build this into a sales quoting smart form. Printer troubleshooting, we can add that as an extension. Also, we all know how printers are, right? They're a pain of our existence. We can do that, and then a basic schedule and on-site visit via the SmartForms portal. So you can give those clients the ability to go in and do that with these scenarios. Like I said, I'll put that link in the chat for you guys. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic, Joe. We appreciate that. I want to bring you back into the conversation shortly from a technical perspective, but I'm going to move over now to Don and talk to some use cases. But before I do that, there's a bunch of people in the chat at the moment, which is great. Throw your questions into the Q&A if you've got some questions, and we'll get those answered. And also, I'd love to see what use cases that you would love to see in the platform as well. Start to think about how could I use this in application today with your current partners, and drop those into the chat for us too, so we can talk to them. All right, so Don, you've had the privilege of working on both sides of the fence. One is in MSP land and one in vendor land now, where you are. And that MSP that you worked for actually had both TimeZest and Pia. This was before we built the integration, so they weren't connected. But I'd be really keen to get your feedback, Don, around what you would have loved to have seen in the MSP by connecting those two, so we could sort of get the juices flowing here for our audience.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good question to bring up. And, I hate to sound vague, but anything, you said it before, right? The sky's the limit with both integrations, but like user onboards, user offboards are two key things that it's constantly happening. And it'd be nice to be able to streamline that from the PS side and eliminate the amount of work that the team has to spend, and then be able to just quickly schedule time with the POC for those actions via TimeZest. Application installs, another one, right? You guys can run application installs out of your side, and then once it's installed, we can work with the end user and schedule time via TimeZest to finish the setup as needed, or get them logged in and show them where to click around. That could be like a VPN setup or RDP setup, or yeah, I mean anything. The printer definitely was a big use case though. So I'm happy you guys have that on your documentation, because printers constantly break. MSPs know that today, and just being able to do simple troubleshooting from the PS side, and then be able to call out TimeZest for scheduling is going to be super beneficial at the end of the day.
Yeah, nice. That's one of Joe's favorites for sure. As a service delivery manager, what sort of impact would that have potentially had? Or you mentioned it's going to save time. Like how much time, and what's the end customer experience by putting those two tools together?
That's a good question. Obviously team size is going to be the biggest proponent of how much time you're going to save at the end of the day, but and how many tickets you're obviously getting in from your customers on a day to day. But uh, Pia can automate majority of your ticket work, and all you have to do is just handhold the customer to do a couple clicks. I mean, you're talking an hour ticket goes down to 15 minutes, right? And that's just
Hmm.
combining the Pia automation and the TimeZest scheduling side, and times that by 10 tickets a day, 8 tickets a day, times 10 texts, 15 texts, right? Like it adds up pretty quickly. But again, it just boils down to your guys' use case. But the good thing from the customer experience side, from the Pia's end, um, it's going to be done the same way every time, right? Once you build out the automation, like it's
Yeah.
going to work, right? Unless something on a package needs to be updated, then you guys can quickly update that package and then release the change. But it's going to happen the same way every single time. And then likewise on TimeZest, you need to schedule time. The appointments are built out. The users are in there. All you have to do is click what you need and send it off, and it's off and running. And you let the customer dictate the time, and then you link up with them from there. So yeah, I mean, if I would have had both running together at the same time, it's not about even cutting staff. It's about being able to grow the company three, four, or 5x without having to add headcount, because we can do more with less, because we have the tools to do it. And that's what these two tools together bring.
I love that.
Hey,
Yeah, yeah.
James, I'd love to jump in here too. So why don't you go, and I got a point to make here.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'll definitely bring you into that conversation, Joey. But I love what you're talking about there, Don, around creating scale, scaling that help desk or scaling service without adding headcount, I think is one of the big riddles that MSPs are trying to solve for, because we've traditionally just thrown bodies at the problem every time we've grown, which impacts our EBITDA in a basically stagnant way. We can't grow our profitability because we're growing at a linear scale with our headcount every time we put more clients on. And you touched on a really nice point around that consistency of service delivery. So, I know, Joe, you're passionate about Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth. How do we take something that's a manual task, is repetitive? How do we scale it? And what's the impact to the rest of the business when we do such a thing? We're not talking about creating robots out of people or turning people into robots, but if we can systemize and automate tasks and give that experience to the end user at the same time, we're going to have ourselves a phenomenal business. Joe.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned something really important before, which is, something I learned in my PA journey, and that is imagine you've got five techs and you're doing new user onboarding, right? The chances that each one of those techs is following the checklist perfectly and precisely of what you've defined as a process is really low. And I'm really confident in saying that because of how many MSPs we've talked to about that problem. And it's just kind of human nature. It's really hard to draw consistency when you get past one person that you've taught to get the second person to follow the process exactly the same way when it's a relatively complex process. It's not a super easy set of tasks necessarily. It can be learned, but it is hard to make sure that there's consistency there. And I think that's where systems and automation really drive a lot of value. It's not just time savings is one pillar of the value, but the second pillar is that consistency of service delivery.
100%.
And the fact that how quickly you can also deliver that service to the end customer, how quickly that turnaround can be. All of that matters. The more you can compress the time it takes from raising an issue to when it's resolved, you're going to drive satisfaction through that process. And quite frankly, I think you also we're in a journey as business people, whether it's my business is a SaaS business or your business is a SaaS business or an MSP business, of always having to drive some operational improvement every day, every year. And this is a great example of nice, easy wins to drive that operational efficiency and change the outlook for end customers. They can see it's a little like a Tesla, right? Every month you get an update. Every month your MSP is improving the way they deliver service. Those are the things that need to be done. And quite frankly, I think the MSP market has one of the hardest jobs to do that because so much of what is done behind the scenes. So as an example, rip and replace an AV and improve the quality of the AV application that you're using in your end customer base by 10x, improve that by 10x. They don't know, right? They don't even know the impact. They just, all they know, maybe they know that the AV changed. I doubt 90% of them even know the AV changed, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot that happens in the background to keep a network stable, to keep these businesses running. And there's so much that happens, what I'll call kind of under the tip of the iceberg and under the water that the end client doesn't see. And for once, we have an opportunity to show them tangibly impact to their day, impact to resolution. And I think that's just phenomenally priceless. So back to though James Allen in America. All right. So how many ski days did you get in living in Salt Lake City?
18. I checked
I'm so jealous.
my Epic Fast. It was 18 or 22. I think it was 22 actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would take me 4 years to get that many days in skiing.
Yeah, and I'm still the same clumsy dude on the snowboard. So
That's fine.
I
At
didn't
least you're
get
doing it.
18 times better, that's for sure. But it was a lot of fun teaching the kids how to ski and snowboard. It was great.
Good. Well, let me add one other thing. This thing that kind of hit me right as Don was ending and in his conversation point. As I mentioned, I apologize for my old moment where it took me so long to remember what year I worked at Pia. But in 2024, as you can imagine, my decision to split my time, I mean, that wasn't an easy decision. I didn't take that decision lightly. I'm CEO of TimeZest. I have basically a work family that I have to care for. And I decided at the beginning of 2024 that I was going to find a way to split my time and put good people in place to run TimeZest. I've got Seth Wilson, running a part of the business. Jameson and my business partner has been part of the business running it, and actually Steve Farnan, who I was about to mention, has recently joined the journey and helped. But the point is that I felt like there was a way to do it, and the reason why I wanted to solve that problem so much is because of what I believed Pia was on the mission of solving. And I deeply believe that mission that you guys have been on, James, is still a phenomenal mission and approaching the problem the right way. And what I mean by that is the following. Most MSPs don't have development resources, right? Most MSPs don't have the ability to say, okay, give me a platform that I can go configure and vibe code or whatever the case may be, and then hope that I can support that going forward. That all that integration work I did, all that building of stuff on whatever platform I've selected can then be sustained into the future for years and years and years and I can survive through losing someone that has won the lottery, right? That one colleague I had managing all of this, and then they won the lottery, and now I've lost him, and now I've got to find someone to manage all of this code or integration work that I've done. And I think that is what really impressed me about what Pia had done at that moment and what Pia has continued to do. And I think a big part of that comes from your roots, your roots of being part of an MSP, born out of an MSP. And then I just always believed that that approach was the right approach. It needs to be configurable. You cannot, to drive these automations, you cannot require MSPs to have to build it. You have to give them the means to configure it. And that's the beauty of what Joe was showing in that 8 minutes, right? To get to that outcome was a configuration event, not a write a bunch of code event.
Yeah, absolutely. We took that approach early because the market, to your point, they just don't have, automation engineers or DevOps people in the MSPs. If they do, they typically want to charge out those services and make money off it. They don't want them building stuff for the most part. So that build versus buy conversation is everywhere at the moment, especially around AI and agents. But look, we definitely believe we're on the right path, and hundreds of partners later, we feel like we're doing the right thing, and there's still a lot more things that we are doing and working on. I'm excited for the rest of the journey here, and we were excited under your leadership as well, Joe. So appreciate that. We have a few more minutes left, guys, and I did want to bring Joe back into the conversation around how long does this take to set up, Joe? How hard is it to set this integration up in the back end if you're a peer partner? And then also, if you wouldn't mind, if I can put you on the spot, the automation hub. So you want to give us a bit of a run through, like just a high level of what that automation hub is and what it means to our peer partners.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing about any setup with Pia is the configuration is pretty easy. And thanks, Sherway, for saying that because you're right. It was really built that way. I always talk about this because I'm on the onboarding team also, do a lot of strategic accounts, but man, I could set up a client in 15 minutes and get going and be running those automations out of the box. But there is configuration areas, and now with the integrations, that one, I just set up in 5 minutes. I went and plugged in the integration, added my extensions that were pre-built already, and I'm able to run that. So it was really quick, especially if we have an integration with the extensions behind it. Super quick. Now, the automation hub itself is a brand new feature with Pia. It's going to take on a life of its own is what I'm seeing. It's basically where we can throw tons of automations within your platform, within your Pia tenant, and you're able to pick and choose what you want it to install or not, which is great. But I think we have 30, we're up to around 35 or 38 since we came up with that at the start of the year when we first launched it. So that's 38 other automations outside of what we've already done. Very easy to install and configure. There's basically steps 1, 2, 3. You run through those steps and you're able to go in and add those packages.
Yeah, I liken it to a marketplace of integrations and automations. And you're right, Joe. I'm excited about where this is going. So the guys have been pretty busy throwing up a couple of automations and integrations every week on the automation hub to people to pull down into their tenant and easily, to Joe's point, plug it in, scale it across all of your clients at ease. But also the next couple of iterations of the hub, where we've got a lot of partners internally in our partner base that are building their own automations that they want to go and put into that automation hub, either to share with the community or even to commercialize. And we've got vendors knocking on our door wanting to do the same thing. So that automation hub is starting here in phase one, I like to call it. But certainly the next few phases is going to be really exciting about this uptick. Excellent. Well, look, we have a couple of minutes left, and I did want to hit some of the questions and answers. So if you haven't already put your questions in the Q&A, please get them in there for the guys. Cheryl, I just answered yours in the chat there. So we do have a ton of tickets that we automate out of the box. So there's over 70 different types of tickets that we're automating end to end, and some without the need of a technician to touch. And then there's a whole list of those Pia packs, to Joe's point, those automation hub automations that you can again bring down into your tenant. And those automations are configurable by client, obviously. Everyone does an onboarding or an offboarding a little bit different. So we give you that ability to configure at scale. And they're also built out across multiple environments because a cloud hybrid workflow is totally different to an on-premise. You need different code, and we're lifecycle managing and versioning that. To Jerway's point earlier, you don't need to have a developer on staff to manage all the code. We're doing that all for you. And then you can build out your own extensions, like we just showed you with the TimeZest one that we've built for our community. The sky's the limit. As long as you can get API access to a third party and write out some activities via PowerShell, you are off to the races. So I hope that answers that one, Cheryl. And then Dennis, I believe yours got answered in the chat as well. So looking to get a TimeZest demo. So the guys have answered that one. And we'll put a link in the post webinar email around a demo for TimeZest, a demo for Pia. And I will just say, if you do stick around to the end after this Q&A session, we will be giving out a special offer for those that have attended the webinar. So we'll give people one more minute to get their questions in, and then we can move into that. Excellent. Well, I think we'll pause it there in regards to the Q&A. And what we'll do now is, for those of you who have attended the webinar and are not a partner already of TimeZest or Pia, we do have uh, a special offering for those guests. So anyone that's coming on board as a new Pia partner, we're offering $2,200 off of your onboarding fee for the next 30 days post this webinar. That gets you in the door, gets you started, gets all of your clients onboarded, configured to Joe's point, tested, validated, and rocking and rolling within 30 days. You'll be up and running. And we typically charge for that onboarding project. We're giving you the chance to come in with $2,200 off the back of this webinar. Jerway, why don't you give the guys a bit of information about the TimeZest offer?
Okay, yeah, awesome. Well, to try to get to similar dollars, a little harder. You guys have a lot more expense on your side to get people ramped up. So we have a $380 onboarding fee. We're happy to waive that and then also apply a 10% off discount to your bill if you become a customer.
Excellent. And you can see there's a lot of love for the TimeZest software in the chat as well. It's awesome to see. Well, thanks again, everyone, for jumping on. I appreciate everyone's time. Joe, was there any final thoughts for the team before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, look, I've got to tell one more James story. Can I do it?
I was teeing it up for you, G. So
All right. So, remember when you and your children came over for just some time at the house, right? Swimming time,
hurricane
hanging out
relief. Yeah,
time.
we lost power. So
Yeah.
after the hurricanes, yeah.
And Lonnie is priceless. This is another, if anyone needs a young little human to come along and make your spouse or partner feel good, she's the one. So Lonnie comes into our house. How old is Lonnie at the time? About 10 years old?
But she's 10 now, so she would have been about 8.
Okay, so she comes in and she goes, "Oh, I just love the design of this house." And so, if you can just imagine my wife standing there hearing all of that, I mean, it was pretty priceless because it's so genuine from a young person. And so if anyone needs that favor at all, you call James, have him bring Lonnie, and you'll be set. And she wants to be
Oh,
an interior designer, I believe, right?
oh, she was inspired off the back of your house for sure. she's
Awesome.
right into her Japanese anime and manga at the moment. So we'll see where that goes. But on that note, I will look to get Lani out to one of the events at some stage this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the perfect person for it. So
Absolutely.
if you're on the road, I think PAX 8 Beyond is in our neighborhood at Salt Lake City. She might do a cameo appearance there at the booth.
Awesome.
Well, look, everybody, really appreciate you jumping on today. Joe, Don from TimeZest, fantastic to have you guys join the Better to Get Together series. Love the work that we're doing together for the community. Joe Spiller, as always, excellent work. Thanks for putting that together and for the work that you're doing inside our partner base. And I saw Dennis here from New Charter on board. He loves you and the work that you're doing over there for those guys. So awesome to have you on here today. Everyone, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for dropping in.
Awesome. Thanks for running this,
Take
James.
care.
Thanks,
Great
everyone.
MC.